Villanova specials, which is Ross Condon, who is a great player who played at Villanova University. He was a part of great runs that will ever be cemented in Wildcat history. Ross, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me. I don't know if I was a great player, but hopefully I was a great teammate.
Hey, greatness is in the eye of the beholder, right? Not
No
only
doubt.
beauty.
No doubt.
So,
hey, and no one greater than Jason Fraser. No doubt about
that. So, Ross, really thank you for joining us. We're going to get to in a little bit is about the sides of you that people don't know. Like here it is. Talk to everyone about your first year joining Villanova. The class where I was in with myself, Randy, Curtis, and Alan, A-Ray, Mikey Claxton, and Baker Dunleavy. We were sophomores, right? So you're coming in the next year. Explain how that experience was.
Yeah, well, what most people probably didn't know is I was supposed to go to Miami of Ohio. I had already gone to orientation. I had classes. I had a roommate. We had talked about what stuff I was bringing, what stuff he was going to bring. And I got off the wait list. Probably was like August 1st, August 2nd at Villanova. So at that point, Villanova was nowhere to be found. So I did off the wait list, and my high school coach had been in communication with Coach Gunning and Billy Lang at that point, and called him and said, hey, Ross got off the wait list. And it just so happened, I think, that maybe there was a walk-on that was supposed to be coming to Villanova that decided he was going somewhere else, or he earned a scholarship somewhere. So there was a spot. So about 5 days later, Billy Lang calls me, says, like, would you have any interest? And, come on, it's Villanova, it's closer to home.
Right.
It's the Big East. I wanted to go into the business school at that time. It was one of the top 10 business schools in the country. So it was like the no-brainer, like, no, do you want me? Like, of course I want you. Like, that was, it was Villanova. It's the Mecca. And so then Coach Wright followed up and again asked me, like, are you sure you want to do this? And I was just like, let me know what time to show up and I'll be there. So funny story, actually, I was thinking about it since we talked yesterday. First day I'm on campus, you guys are there all summer. I missed my freshman summer because I didn't know I was going to Villanova. So we go to, I think it was student orientation, or maybe it was like a special athlete orientation. And, first person I bump into, of course, Will Sheridan, who's always so friendly and all that. First thing he says is, how come you didn't have to be here in the summer? And I was like, hey, man, thanks for having me on campus. And at that point, I didn't realize what he meant until, the next summer when, you're up at 6 a.m. and, summers aren't easy as a college athlete. And thinking about back on it now, I laugh. And of course, he was like, wait, why'd you get a free pass? So that was my kind of initial journey to Villanova. And then obviously, the start of the season, and I guess we can talk about it a little bit. I knew what my role was going to be. They tell you as a walk-on, like, you're going to dive on the floor. You're going to be a tackling dummy almost in practice. You're going to do all the dirty things. And you're still expected to show up on time, work just as hard, at 6 a.m., be there and run all the sprints that you and Kurt were talking about, be in the weight room, but when the ball went up, you were basically, you're going to be a cheerleader. And, I was totally fine with that. Obviously coming from a different role in high school where, I was Jason Fraser in high school, to going to having to be, Ross Condon at Villanova was, it took a little bit to fully, I guess from, having an ego, which all athletes do, understanding like, hey, this is now my role and this is what I have to accept to help this team. But then it kind of got sidetracked because apparently you guys, the year before I got there, had been making some phone calls, and that whole deal happened. So, the first 3 games I got thrown into the Temple game at the end of the game, normal walk-on minutes. But then we go to Maui, and I don't think you didn't even make the trip, if I'm correct.
No, I was home, just working on my game, coming back rehabbing.
You were being the cheerleader from home. You were being Ross it
I
from
was
home.
I was cheerleading, and I
So
had to I sat out my game. So it wasn't officially rehab, but I sat out my games there. I was healthy and I would have played,
yep,
but I used the time just to stay home with the training staff.
yep. And then Redlands, we played with, I think it was 5 scholarship players and 3 walk-ons. And I think I was the last one to go in the game just as I was the freshman walk-on. And I ended up playing, I think it was like 19 minutes. And of course I remember my stats because it's the only game I played in. And I had like 2 points and 2 rebounds, 4 assists maybe. And I'm like, hey, I can do this. Like, hey, put me in the game, Coach Wright.
Right.
Put me in the game. And I think I got in another minute in the first game of Maui. And, just being an 18-year-old kid, full of confidence, I was like, hey, I might be in the rotation maybe. And, played my first 3 games. And I think I played like 3 games, maybe 3 minutes the rest of the year because, then you came back and everyone came back. And, I had to take a step back and, again, realize why I was doing it and the role I served on our teams. And then, again, that was kind of my initial introduction to Villanova and where I kind of found my place in the program. But still remember, again, you've talked about it on this show, but just the incredible people in our locker room, but also the staff. Like, I remember Coach Pitney after the Redlands game. And I think my initial conversations with Coach Wright and Coach Lang were, hey, let's see how it works out being a walk-on, because they really didn't know me. I mean, I just got into Villanova 3 weeks before the school year. And, normally you come up on a visit and you meet with anyone, even if you're a walk-on, because they want to know who's in their locker room. Walk-ons, as I know you understand, because, the relationship we've had for going on now 18 years,
Mm-hmm.
They play an important role in a program and really kind of keep the culture together in a different role than the guys on the court. But Coach Pitney kind of said, hey, man, I think you earned your 4-year deal, for all 4 years. So, just things like that, just the people around Villanova, how they made me felt throughout my 4 years, but especially that first year when, I knew I was the new guy. I knew I wasn't around all summer. I'm sure there were plenty of guys when I walked in the locker room the first day being like, who's this kid? But, you never felt that way. From day one, Coach doesn't use the word family because there's no real need. But we are. And again, you've spoken on it, just all the relationships you've built, and even, guys 5 years ahead of you and guys that, were 5 years behind you that to this day, if you have to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, can you help me out? Or do you know someone that can help me out? They pick up the phone and they'll make those 2 or 3 calls to help you out in whatever it is.
Right. And I think that's so key. We talk about it a lot. Specifically, you're touching on a topic that I think people don't understand. Talk about what does it mean specifically to be a walk-on at Villanova as opposed to other programs, because you have experience now where you've seen other programs, you have come in contact with other individuals or coaches that talk about it. What is the difference that from your experience that set Villanova above the rest of the competition?
And now being on the other side of it for 14 years coaching, I always remember Coach Wright's line, we don't all have the same responsibility, but we all deserve the same respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, a deeper thing, obviously Attitude Club, which there's no one better than Jason Fraser with that, is, there were nights that maybe Randy scored 20 and Kyle scored 20 and A-Ray scored 20, and you might have only had 4 points, but, your job was to defend and rebound and block shots and protect the paint. And at the end of the day in our locker room, we knew that you were the game MVP. Like, the reason we won the game was because Jason Fraser did what he was supposed to do. And that even though Randy scored 20, we knew that on defense, maybe he didn't make 3 or 4 rotations that he was supposed to. And people on the outside just saw the box score and said, we won because Randy scored 20. But, internally, your responsibility was, these 4 things, and you took care of it. And that's why we won the game. Or me and Tommy Grace and Baker and Mikey, the day before, our job was to run the scout team and play as hard as we could to prepare you guys. And if we didn't do that the day before, well, we weren't doing our job.
Right.
And again, no one was going to ask me to come do an interview like we're doing right now. But I knew that you guys respected it enough that if I didn't dive after a loose ball the day before, then you weren't going to dive after the ball the next night. And, I think that's why, you saw why we were there. Our teams get better and better and better. And really, we talk about Villanova basketball, the brand really, you could see it being built. We got there. I got there in year 3. You got there in year 2, if I'm correct, right? For Coach Wright?
Yes, it was year 2.
Like I always think about just your 4 years, but my 4 years of how you saw things happen on a day-to-day basis that no longer was Coach Wright having to remind us or yell at us because, you guys were juniors and seniors. And again, I'm the walk-on. Like, what's it really matter if the ball's going out of bounds and I dive on it? But for you guys, if I didn't dive on it and you didn't say something to me, then, as leaders, what example were you setting for everyone else in the gym? That it didn't matter who you were. That was everyone's responsibility. And we respected each other enough that we were going to do it. And, and then it's no surprise that you start winning, and you start winning a lot, and you start winning championships and going to NCAA tournaments and advancing in NCAA tournaments, because, day one, when you step into the gym, that if you don't do all that other stuff, of course, Coach Wright, you're fearful that he's going to yell at you, but, you were more fearful that you were going to yell at him, or Randy, or A-Ray. You guys tell all the Kyle stories, but, I think that was the greatest example of it, that, Coach Wright basically said, hey, you guys want to be good, you take over. And, I give Kyle a lot of credit because he was really the only younger guy at that point that was playing. And all of us had 3 or 4 years of experience. Like, we knew why he was yelling. And maybe your freshman and sophomore year, I was there sophomore year. I knew there were some times that we'd all look at each other and like, we don't get it. We don't know why he's yelling. But that's the difference in, I think we ended up like 15-15 in the regular season.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the next year, you're whatever it is, 25-8, because just, those little things in close ball games, instead of losing by 2, you win by 2. And it's all the things that people don't see on a day-to-day basis that was happening in practice. I'm still laughing. I just listened to the Curtis one last week, but the drill you guys had to do,
the war drill.
The war drill.
Oh my gosh, it was the worst.
I was probably out of drills at that point because you guys, the forwards on one end competing,
right.
And I was the 5th guard, so they only let 4 guards in the drill. So they'd be competing, and I'd be watching you guys, just beat each other up. I mean, like you said it was a fist fight. But then the next night when we went to Providence or we went to Syracuse, and you were in the paint and there was actually a referee calling fouls, it was probably a lot easier. Like at least when you got smacked or tackled, you got to shoot 2 free throws, not told you missed a layup, you got to run up and down and then come back and get in the drill. Right. So, and again, now on the coaching side, as I've, matured as a coach and seen it happen with different teams, you think back to where we were as freshmen and sophomores and understand why we might have been really talented, but just not winning the way we thought we should have been winning.
Let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with the Bet Rivers yet, now's the time. Bet Rivers Sportsbook is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one play through to turn your bonus into cash. When you win at Bet Rivers Sportsbook, they pay fast. And now it's even faster with the Rush Pay instant approval for withdrawals. It's safe, it's secure, and it's reliable. With March Madness right around the corner, there's never been a better time to give Bet Rivers Sportsbook a try. Go to betrivers.com. That's BETRIVERS.com today. Or download the Bet Rivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call TEL 1-800-GAMBLER. Right. It's the little things that count. And like I said, it's so important. And I really mean this when I say Villanova great. You're one of the greatest players for me, one of the greatest players for me that actually taught me about preparation, taught me a lot about consistency was Tommy Grace. Out of all players, by far, it was Tommy. He revolutionized my thinking. It was my sophomore year, and I remember it just changed a lot. It changed a lot. And you know what? I'll dive into the story when I have him come on the show and go into it exactly how. But I spoke to about it a little bit, just about how Tommy could have been a Rhodes Scholar. Tommy was a 4.0 GPA student at Villanova. He decided instead of becoming a Rhodes Scholar, he decided to come back another year at Villanova, and that's how much how committed he was. And I just remember I came real early one time because I don't know if a class got canceled or whatever, but I know I could come early, and I went to see Jeff Pierce, the trainer at the time, and I was getting my rehab. But on the way to the gym, I came down, and in my mind, I'm supposed to be on the court an hour and a half before anyone is there. Tommy's there shooting. He's there shooting on the court, and I couldn't believe it. And then, long story short, I realized Tommy was a 4.0 student, not because he just cared about academics, it's because he wanted to be the greatest he can be in all facets, in all ways.
Absolutely.
And he did it with basketball, he did it there. And again, as a walk-on, I remember specifically with you and speaking with Randy and speaking with A-Ray, you don't realize the impact that you have, because walk-ons, like everyone knows about teams with the walk-ons, but at Nova, we were all one. We were all one team. And the thing is, I remember it was, you better play hard, you better do the right thing, or he's going to embarrass you. Like it was, if you just played around, I remember that you had like that, you were like a mini Mike Nardi with attitude wise, where, Nardi had just like that tough, I'm just going to prove you wrong kind of thing. Yeah. And you did that over and over and over. And I know, and the coolest thing about it was you were very approachable in the sense of, in the heat of battle, when the play broke or as soon as practice was over, we were friends back again. But during practice, and I remember Tommy was like this, I don't know if you got it from Tommy, but you wouldn't hesitate, oh, you're Randy, you're our star player, we're playing a big game tomorrow. If you dig inside, when I catch this rebound, I will elbow you if I need to. And that was the Villanova way. And you brought that. And the same thing with Bake. I remember Bake, when he was a scout team, we would joke around, and and you guys would get buckets. It was like, nah, let's focus, let's play hard. And if you don't have that element on the team, you don't have that consistency, you can't be great. You're going to have great spurts, but you're not going to have the consistency of what it takes to be a top seeded team and to make deep tournament runs. So, that I'm forever grateful. And that's why, in my eyes, what makes you great.
Yeah, and I think you spoke about it. Again, I listened to the Curtis one just recently, so it's in my mind how Coach Wright would divide you guys up on maybe not the day before the game, but 2 or 3 days before, would divide you guys up, so it was really competitive. And I think, the rest of us, the day before, it almost would be doing a disservice to you guys if we didn't try to bring the same level of competition. Because, I think, again, stepping on this side of the table as a coach, like I think was trying to make sure that it was so competitive 3 days out, 2 days out. And then if the day before we dropped the level, and then for a game you had to bring it up to here, like we were doing a disservice to you guys. And in turn doing a disservice, because I didn't want to sit on the bench and watch us lose. Like,
right.
There was nothing worse than that, than sitting there and be like, man, I know we should have won this game. Like, did we do something yesterday that didn't help them? Because again, on the coaching side now, there are days where, as a staff, we know we should win this game, but yesterday our practice was just okay. And our walkthrough this morning was just okay. And as coaches, you try to do everything, Coach Wright would, Jason Fraser, this, because he was trying to just try to switch your mindset. Like you talked about watching Tommy prepare. And again, it's hard I'm sitting here, I'm 35, you're probably 42 because you were in college. But, or you move like you're 42, but I got one for that. So I got one for that. But 18 to 22, 18 to 22, like you just don't understand. You're like, man, why? Like the game's in 8 hours, coach. Why are you yelling at me now? But he knew that, if you didn't take this serious, it was going to come to be a one possession game. And it might be that base OB we were going over that you were supposed to switch. And just because at 9 a.m., you weren't prepared, that at 9 p.m. when you were supposed to make the switch, you didn't. And then we lost the game. And then you were thinking, oh man, I wish I was like mentally focused. And again, you talked about it, but the greatest thing that happened, and I mean this, I don't even know how to put it the right way, but I didn't get to see you in high school, but all the stories I heard about you, like, I don't know if you were going to be at Villanova for 4 years, if everything didn't happen. And if Kurt didn't get hurt, he definitely wasn't going to be there for a fifth year.
No.
And I don't know why Randy stayed for the last year. I know, he made a couple different promises about graduating, but he could have left, right? He easily could have left, and we all would have cheered for him on draft night.
Right.
But the greatest thing I think, being a coach now and trying to build a program here while we were at Penn State is, you have to have some things. Again, those aren't lucky things selfishly, but as a program, you need certain things to happen for it to all work out. And when you were there, you had some older guys, but they were only around for a year, 2 years, and really they also probably didn't understand Coach Wright all the way. And Tommy was that one guy, like in year 3, that I think finally got the message. And that's why he was there earlier. And I think a lot of us looked to him because, by that time, he wasn't 20. He was probably 22. It might have been his 5th year, 23 years old. And he knew why Coach Wright was yelling, where all of us were looking around like, why is he yelling again? And Tommy would come try to talk to us, or especially, whatever. He tried to, and again, just didn't fully grasp it. But you guys staying there for 4 years, my senior year, we have Mike, we have Bump, and then Kurt stays around. There were 3 senior leaders where we weren't as talented as we had been the years before. Like we lost you, we lost Randy, we lost Alan, and Kyle, he left, and we probably were thinking midway through the year before that we're getting Kyle back. But at least we had 3 guys on the court most of the time that had been through the battles, that knew the message, that knew, when Dante didn't dive, or Scotty didn't dive, or Dwayne didn't dive, or whoever didn't dive, it wasn't Coach Wright anymore yelling. It was those 3 guys, and they had earned the respect that the younger guys listened to them. And, fortunately, we squeaked in the NCAA tournament, and, that continued, I guess, the tournament run or whatever, but just the winning culture that, we're Villanova. When we show up, if we do what we're supposed to do, we should win this game. I don't know how we're going to win it, but even when we don't make shots, somehow we're going to figure it out. And then, you just watch the progression. The next year, they had no seniors, right? It was all those guys were juniors. And, they had some ups and downs, but they had been there 3 years. They still understood why things were the way they were. And they make a little run, I think, at the end of the year. And I think they went to the Sweet 16 that year.
Yeah.
But then it all sets up in 2009.
Yes.
They have all these seniors, it's not, they had watched you guys as seniors when they're freshmen. They had watched Curtis and Mike and Will lead them. And then as juniors, I'm sure looking back on it, they probably made a couple of mistakes because it was the first time they were leading. But the second time they were leading, they had figured it out. And, there was no, when Scotty's shot goes in, there was no like, oh man, they got lucky. We knew internally all the things they had done for 4 years to put themselves in that position. And especially the guys that were on the floor and Scotty, like being there, even Scotty's a freshman, how many times he had taken that shot, or how many times we had run that play, that he knew what the decision, like it just happened. And, I think did Dwayne or Dante set the back screen, but
I believe it was Dwayne.
Dwayne, but like we all knew. I mean, I didn't get to go to the game because I think we probably were on a recruiting trip, but watching it, like they went to the media timeout, and I could have called any of us and we said, well, this is what they're going to. Like, let's make sure everyone does what they're supposed to do. And again, if you do what you're supposed to do, normally good things happen, and it happened. And then, everything kind of has been great from then, and people, I always talk to people, Keith Ergos works with me here at Penn State, and he didn't come in till 2008. And I always joke to him, like, you'd have no idea the first 4 years until my senior year. But really, I wasn't there your freshman year, but I was there your sophomore year.
Right.
People just don't know the day-to-day. You've talked about the practices, the fights, getting yelled at, the arguments, what went into Scotty shot going in 6 years later.
Yeah, so much.
And, sitting on this side of it now, it's something I'm so proud to be a part of. And really, we all, I know, value the word attitude so much, but it just has taught us so much about life. Like we were talking last night, I know you're coaching kids through a pandemic. None of us have been through this before. We don't really know what to say to kids, but, we use our experience of the setbacks we've had to try to help them. But really, just being there with you and seeing the growth of Villanova basketball, nothing makes me prouder now to watch it on a nightly basis and see the success they have every year.
Yeah, you said a mouthful there. Honestly, it was all good points where people don't understand what goes in to success. Like when you see a shot go in, or when you see a long or deep tournament run, they don't understand the years and the sacrifice is the word, the sacrifices that had to be made in order to get to that point. All right, but with you moving on, you mentioned a couple of times you're at Penn State. Talk to everyone about two things. Talk to everyone about your journey there, because again, I'm very, very proud of you. I'll let you know that over the years.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
I speak about it. I am proud of you. Talk to everyone about that journey. And then also on talking that journey, finish up by talking what we discussed a little bit yesterday about what we're asking of these kids, their mindset, what they have to deal with going back to the dorm, not being able to communicate with each other. We're going back to our family, they're not. So take us through your journey, and then talk about
and I guess it's an appropriate time because, my journey kind of right after, it kind of starts in 2009. It's a Villanova connection, no shocker. Like I said, everything goes back to Villanova. But, right after I graduated, I'd seen I'd only scored, I think 7 or 11 points over 4 years. So, I think my time playing basketball was gone. So, I went into, you have a postseason meeting with Coach Wright, and my conversation was obviously different. Like I wasn't looking at where I could play overseas. It was, I wanted to get my MBA, and I knew we had graduate assistants, some of the best, Mark McClintock, and Stevie, and
Stevie
just
G,
different guys. Yeah, Stevie G. There's so many others. You saw what they did. By working with the basketball program, they got I think they got some of their schooling paid for. And I looked at some other schools, and that was an option. And I just went in and said, "Hey, Coach Wright, do you know anyone at X, Y, or Z school?" And he looked at me and said, "No, you're gonna coach." And I said, "Okay, sure. It's Coach Wright. What am I saying? No, I'm not.
Right.
I'm going to business school.
Right.
Sure, I'm going to coach." And it just so happened, I guess he had bumped into Brad Greenberg, who was about to be the head coach at Radford, Virginia, which, luckily was about 3.5, 4 hours from where I grew up in Washington, D.C. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to get him on the phone. You're going to send him your resume." And I said, "That sounds really good." Well, as you know, and we talked about summers, we didn't go get internships in the summer. Like even as a walk-on, I spent most of my summer up at Villanova working out with you guys.
Yes, we all had to work.
I left there, and he had told Coach Greenberg, he's going to send you his resume tomorrow. Well, what do you think the biggest issue was? I don't have a resume.
Right.
I've been an athlete. I've been playing basketball. Even though I was sitting on the bench, I still think I'm going to be a professional basketball player, because that's how at 18 to 22, that's how, you think like, I'm still going to play in the NBA. He doesn't know anything. I'm playing the NBA. So I go home, I make up a resume, actually drive it down there because I was like, I want to see if I'm going to get this job. I don't know where Radford, Virginia is. And it just so happened that also Coach Greenberg was with the Sixers, I think, when Coach P was in the league. And they overlapped at some point. So, between Coach Wright and Ed Pitney calling them, I got to have an interview, and I guess I did a good enough job, or, I was willing to take the job for what they were paying back in the day as kind of like a part-time ops job, that I got the Radford job. So that's why I'm even coaching basketball, is basically Coach Wright said, that's what you're going to do. So again, I can't thank them enough. I text them all the time and thank them. Obviously didn't think I was going to Villanova University. And 3 weeks before I go to Villanova University, and probably, now being 35, looking back on it, probably the most important day in my life in terms of how my life has turned out. Coaching basketball, met my wife there. And then I meet Pat Chambers there. Coach Chambers comes in, Pat comes in my sophomore year as the ops guy.
Right.
He's probably about the age I am now. And I remember him just, taking us out to lunch one day, me and Mike, and I think Will, and just kind of shooting the shit, just saying, hey man, I'm new to this. I'm new to college basketball. Explain to me your teammates. So that was another interesting conversation, but we built a relationship of, just not on the floor, but, he was kind of my guy in the office. We all have our guy that we would come into the office and say, hey man, I'm struggling with this, this, and this. Can you help me? So they go to, Scotty makes a shot. They go to the Final Four. Boston University hires Pat Chambers. And I'm like, all right, I've been in the business 2 years. Boston's, I'm living in Radford, Virginia at 23 years old. Boston sounds really cool at 23 years old compared to Radford, Virginia. So I have a discussion with Pat. And actually the first time he says, hey man, I'm a new coach. You're 23, you're too young. Maybe next time. So I actually went back and signed my lease at Radford. And it said, I guess I'm not getting the job. We had just gone to the NCAA tournament at Radford. I'm like, hey, it could be a lot worse. We're going to be good again. Maybe Coach Greenberg wins and we're going somewhere else. We're getting the next job. And about a week later, I'm assuming a lot of people just said no, or he won't tell me this. I've asked him a couple of times, but he calls back and actually pull over in a Walmart parking lot. I'm out Sunday getting groceries, and he goes, hey, I need a Villanova guy. I realized I need a Villanova guy that understands kind of what I'm going to try to build here, because I'm going to try to, bring an attitude club, and I want people to dive on the floor, and I'm going to do charge drill. And he was like, do you want to come up here? And I'm like, you want me to drive now? Like, what do you mean? He's like, nah, fly up here, check it out. And I'm like, Pat, you're telling me I can be an assistant? I'm 23 years old.
Right.
You're going to pay me twice as much because it is what it is.
Right.
And I got to live in Boston. I said, don't save your money. I'll be there. So obviously I get up there with Pat. We're there 2 years. We were very fortunate that we had some seniors in the program when we got there, an older team. And we had a guy named John Holland, who was the player of the year and, played in the NBA. And it helps at those levels when you have the best player. Again, we got lucky. And, he gets the Penn State job in 2011. And 10 years later, I'm sitting here talking to you in Happy Valley, and, got 31 days left in the season. And not that I watch it, but, we're right on the bubble, and hopefully can get a couple more wins and, experience the tournament for the first time here, which, I want to give these guys the same feeling that I got my junior year or my sophomore year at Villanova, because, last year, going into the pandemic, we were supposed to go to the tournament, and, there's nothing greater than, I think I still have a picture when we're sitting next to each other, hearing your name called on that Sunday. There's not a greater feeling as a college basketball player, because as we talked about it, everything you did since last May or June and July to get you to that Sunday to say, hey man, you earned a place in March Madness. But, and that brings us into the pandemic, so, the pandemic started as our plane left the Big Ten tournament, and we still thought the NCAA tournament was going on. And just had one of, if not the greatest year, depending on how it was going to finish in Penn State history. We're 9th in the country. We're going to the tournament. We had started playing better. And, why we're in the air, they cancel the NCAA tournament. So we land back here and we go in the locker room. And, again, we were talking as coaches, never been through this. We don't know the right things to say. You try to use your experiences. We got to tell Lamar Stevens, our senior, who I think, everyone knows Lamar in Philly.
Yeah.
Not only are we telling him his career's over, he's 6 points away from being the leading scorer. So he's 6 points, and you're telling him, hey, that's it. Go home. Yeah. And fast forward, we now start this season. And, for us, and we talked about it, just Villanova went through a little pause too. In the Big Ten, we get tested every day. So it doesn't matter if it's your off day. Between 8:30 and 9, like, you're up getting tested. Even if it's snowing, it snowed 10 inches the other day. Like, I got to clear my driveway to make sure I get to testing so that I can go to practice at 3:00. And then, for us personally, we talked about Villanova, about 30 days before the season, October 23rd, Coach Chambers, who you've known for 15, 16 years now, kind of is forced to resign. He's got to leave. And, still really have never been told why. And that's been tough on top of the pandemic. So now as a coach, we've been in this situation. And again, I look back to our Villanova team. So the one thing I think that made us great, and you talked about it, you said it, is you respected Tommy Grace and what he did and how he prepared as much as you respected any of the 4 guys you started with.
Right.
And the team we have here now is we have leaders and people that are great people. And it's given us a chance with 30 days left to have a position to finish strong and maybe hear our name selected. But I give all the credit to these kids with, again, pandemic, coach leaves, winter break. Everyone else went home to their families. They're going back to their dorms and told, don't hang out with anyone. Then we go on a pause and we put them in hotel rooms and tell them, not only don't hang out with anyone, but you can't come to the gym and shoot. And those guys that's their life. Like, that's their routine. Like, if they don't have that, like, it starts messing with you. So they went through that, and then we've come back and we've won a couple games here. And again, 31 days, I think it is. I see it on Twitter every day how many are left, but 31 days to close here and maybe do something that, no one thought we could do. And again, it brings me back to Villanova where, after going into your junior year, the way that your sophomore year ended, which I know you don't like to look back on it, but I just looked this morning because I'm like, I didn't realize it was, I think we were like 14-8, and we were like, oh man, we're going to the tournament, and we won like one of the last 8 games because, but again, and Villanova, we were talking about Villanova, like those guys, and maybe you want to talk about the current team. I know you said at some point, but just coming out of that pause, the guy whose routine is to get 500 shots every day. He hasn't done that for 10 days. Right. That's probably never happened to him since he was 10 years old, because every day since he was 10, he wanted to be a professional basketball player. And every day he knew, like I think of Mike Nardi, because Mike Nardi every day had his shooting routine because I was his roommate. I knew Mike was going to do his routine. And if Mike didn't do his routine, like Mike was just a different person.
Yeah,
on the court, off the court, because
yeah.
That was what he did. Because when it came time to make that shot, he didn't want to say, "Hey man, I didn't get up Wednesday and shoot. That's why the ball didn't go in." So again, you're coaching a high school team. I think you were telling me you're not playing this weekend, and now, and I don't know if you're allowed in the gym. We didn't even talk about it, but maybe not. And then next week you're going to play like an NBA schedule, and I'm sure there'll be people like, your best player, oh man, he's off. Well, yeah, he just took 2 weeks off where he didn't run,
right.
He didn't shoot, in the middle of the season. It's not like it's the summer where you're like,
right,
hey man,
right.
rest your body. Like in the middle of the season, like even on your off day, you're doing something to prepare yourself for the game 2 days from now.
Correct.
So you know, as coaches, it's been, you know, I won't say it's been difficult, but you know, it's been exciting just to, you know, try to help kids in so many different ways, on the court, off the court, you know, just to keep them going. And you were saying it, but to give them something to look forward to, because, you know, like you love playing basketball. I love playing basketball. You know, there's a lot of kids that's what they want to do every day. And when you tell them they can't do that, you know, I'm sure it affects them in their academics, well, there is no social right now, but in, you know, just in everything. So, yeah, it's been interesting. And, you know, it's funny sharing it with you, you know, on the high school level, you know, just how it affects kids and how maybe people outside still look at it as like, I don't know why that guy's making shots. And, you know, you just might not know what's going on, you know, in his own life, or, you know, even for us, maybe in their families' lives. And during the pandemic, like, you know, being away from your family when, you know, we know a lot of families have been struggling with COVID and other stuff, you know, it's just, it can be hard. And, you know, Coach Wright always said, like, you know, try to keep it 94 by 50 when you show up.
Right.
But again, there are those days. I mean, I'm 35 years old, and there's, you know, a day or here where I struggle with that if something has gone on in my life.
Right.
And you know, 18 to 22, it's even harder. We just talked about it, 9 a.m. walkthroughs. Like, yeah, I know I'm supposed to be focused, but who knows what happened. And I'm just not able to do it right now. But so yeah. It's been interesting 10 months to say the least.
I think obviously this will be a moment that go down in basketball history. The last 12 months, you know, the last year, from college to high school to NBA, AAU, everyone has been affected in a drastic way. But Ross, we thank you for joining us.
And I got to give one Jason Fraser story though.
Go ahead.
You talk about preparation, and I don't think, again, outside the walls, I don't think people have any idea the preparation it took for you to get on the court. And like you say, you respect me. There might be not another person I respect the way you had to prepare just to practice. And you talked about it and you laughed about it, about being given 40 minutes to do an hour of rehab and have to walk across campus. But every day, and I tried to stay out of the training room because, you know, I just didn't want to get yelled at by Jeff getting in your way. But I think, you know, I needed a Band-Aid one day. And, you know, if I'm correct, your senior year, just to get you through the pain, I think maybe like 3 times they had to give you some pain medication, right?
Yeah, it was what it was Synvisc that they had to put in my knees as a lubricant, and it had to last for so long. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just happened before the game, either was getting something for someone, or I was and I walked in and they were giving you the shot, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm not great with needles, and I was just kind of froze, like, and I ran out of the training room like, what is going on?
Right.
And then to see you come out and compete the way you did, and not even, you know, you wouldn't say much about it because that was your norm. Like, right. People on the outside might have been like, well, why Jason looked like he was struggling to get up and down the court, and I'm like, well, you weren't there an hour before the game where everyone was warming up and he was getting a needle. And again, you know, just watching you do that and knowing that you were going out there not for only yourself, but for us, like, you know, you can't say any more than that in terms of, you know, going to battle with your brothers. So, you know, that's just one thing I've always looked at you, and, you know, you look on it like whatever happens to you, it can't be any more painful than that.
Right. So, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. And one more, because I got you.
No, go ahead. We're here.
Yeah. The other thing is, you know, I always heard Jason Fraser stories, you know, because Kurt and A-Ray and Randy saw you in high school, and even Mike, because he was from that area. And I didn't see in high school, there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't Baller TV, you know, there wasn't, you didn't get like highlights, you know, to find something, you'd get really lucky to find one highlight. So your sophomore year, you know, you battled, you were just coming off injury, and they kept saying, that's not Jason Fraser that we know. That's not Jason Fraser. Mm-hmm. And we start the junior year, and, you know, there's a couple of days where we're running sprints, And, you know, it wasn't Usain Bolt back then. It was like Michael Johnson was the
Right,
sprinter,
right.
Michael Johnson, and you had a little like Deion Sanders in you. You'd high step once you beat us all in sprints.
Yeah.
So they're like, so now we got the 6'9" guy winning sprints. And I'm like, that's the Jason Fraser that they must be talking about. And we go to Providence, right? And I'm sure you've heard the story so much.
Mhm.
And again, you put, I think it's like 25 and 15. And I still remember he had 10 offensive rebounds. And I was sitting there, I'm like, holy shit. Now I know who Jason Fraser is. You know, and it just so happened. And again, I hate talking about, like, you fall, I think, with like 4 minutes left.
Right.
And you break your hand, right? And we were rolling too. Like, I think we had lost one game, but like we knew we were playing good.
No, we're rolling.
We were about to take off. And now we got 4 guards and Jason, like, bring it on. Good luck. And you break your hand. And then obviously we have the flight that night.
Oh my gosh.
Flight
Where
that night.
we almost crashed in the ocean.
You know? And you're thinking like, no way. After what happened at last season at the end, they're like, no way this is happening again. And I think even we lose like the next 2 games, maybe like really close games. And I think maybe one was the Georgetown game where I think Bump ties it up and they throw the length of the court, like with a second, we foul them. And you're just like, man, no way that Jason is here. We're about to roll. Like, we almost crash in the ocean. We lose it overtime. But again, I think you were supposed to miss, they said to us, like a month, or maybe it was
a while. Yeah.
a while. And then, you know, another Jason Fraser, like, you cared more about us than yourself at that point. Because like, you were like, listen, I want to win. Like, I want to do this with my brothers, with everyone. Like, you show up with like a boxing glove on or something to practice.
Yeah.
And we're like, Jason, how the hell are you going to play with that? And he said, don't throw me the ball. Don't throw me the ball. I play defense. I'll play defense and rebound. You guys do the rest. And I, you know, and again, and then we, you know, we take off again. I think it took a couple games to get you back in the mix, but we won like, I want to say like 11 of our last 12. And, you know, we go to the Sweet 16. And again, we talked about it. It's those moments that people don't understand as to why Villanova is Villanova and what Villanova has become. It's those Jason Fraser moments that you said, hey, this is probably not best for me, but this is best for Villanova basketball and everyone I care about, from Tommy Grace to Randy Foye to Alan Wright to Ross, you know. And again, I appreciate, you know, you for that, because again, if we didn't win, or Pat Chambers, they don't get the Final Four, then I'm not sitting here talking to you.
Right,
again,
true.
It all comes back to why I'm so appreciative of that day that, you know, Coach Wright said you can be part of Villanova basketball, that I got to meet people like you and see the things that, you know, really matter in not just basketball, but I think you were teaching all of us, now that we look back, things in life that, hey, like, you might not be 100%, but you know, when you wake up, if you got a chance to show up and make an impact, show up. And with the pandemic, I think that just made me thought of the pandemic too. Like, hey, everything's not great, but like, if you show up and you're going to play basketball and you get the opportunity, show up and ball, you know what I mean? And enjoy it and have fun. So just, those are 2 things I couldn't stop thinking about.
Oh no, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And that's great perspective. And like I said, I appreciate every word. And I know I'm going to think about this all day today. I'm going to go to sleep on it. It's nice, you know, to know that someone you've been seen or you've been heard, you know, even in your struggles, even in your triumphs, even in your fight. And I appreciate every word that you said. And
having me, Jason.
It was a pleasure. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
For the next 31 days and counting, that you guys go on a nice run.
Thank you.
And you bring, again, all this that we're talking about, you bring that experience, you bring that that feeling, you're going to bring this moment to the staff, with you and the rest of the staff, that you can bring to these kids, and that they'll be able to experience it, and they'll be able to talk to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
Absolutely.
We end this show like how we end it all the time. I'll say it and you'll finish it. Once a Wildcat.
Always a Wildcat.
Ease up, baby.
Ease
all right,
up.
I see you.
Have a great day, Jason. Thank you.
Same to you as well. Be blessed.